What is going on, everybody? Hey, how's it going? So I wanted to come on here. I've been stewing for quite some time over this whole dilemma that's been going on. And I needed to sit back for quite some time to kind of digest everything that was coming in, explore my own feelings and emotions, and then apply my wisdom to what is going on. And of course, what I'm talking about right now are the riots that are going on, the whole thing going on with Black Lives Matter, the whole thing going on with Antifa. We're even going to talk about police brutality, and we're going to talk about different aspects there. We're going to talk about the Black community and things that need to improve there as well. We're going to talk about things to do with the white community. We're going to talk about racism a little bit today, too. We're going to talk about the state and tyranny. And we're going to talk about coronavirus a bit as well and the bullshit that's gone on there. And then I think we'll even tie in a little bit of corporate overstep. So first and foremost, I'm probably going to expect for this. Let's just put it out there in case this video does go viral, so to speak, and people don't have a clue who I am. Shit, I'm not going to give really. I don't feel like giving it. Explore who I am. Make your choices. But here's the thing: is actually, and that's the thing that I want to start off with is listen to what I have to say, and then make your judgments. Don't worry about my experiences. I don't feel like going into a fucking long diatribe. Let's stay on point here. Just know I have a lot of experience with a lot of different things when it comes to this stuff. So let's get cracking. Let's start talking about this stuff. First and foremost, this is years and years and years in the making, what is happening right now. A lot of people sit there and still tie this whole thing to racism. And believe it or not, that's just the crock of bullshit. Let's be real. And that's another thing I want to preface this whole thing with. I'm going to fucking throw some stuff out there that's going to punch a lot of people in the face. That's what I do. This isn't meant to harm anyone. The problem is that we live in a world today where people aren't telling the truth. People are covering up a lot of their stuff with these euphemisms and delivering platitudes and being politically correct. And the problem with all that is we don't solve any issues in our society when people don't just rip off the Band-Aid and say, hey, this is what's going on. So I'm going to point a lot of fingers at a lot of different communities today. Because the biggest thing is this. The overall aspect is everyone's complicit here. Everybody is complicit here. There's not one person who is not a victim, and there's not one person who is also not the oppressor. That's the problem with what's going on today. There's too much us versus them. There's too much us versus them, and no one knows where to kind of target that energy or direction. So chaos has ensued. Now, let's start off this whole thing. Let me be completely clear and completely frank. This whole thing started off, right? The riots started off because of the whole George Floyd incident. Now, I have my reservations about what has gone on with that situation. I do. But let's be clear and let's be honest. There never should have been a situation where a police officer had his knee on a subdued suspect on their neck for 10 minutes, right? That whole control style of doing business was a means for them to, if police officers are going to be utilizing that tactic, is a means for them to subdue them while they get the restraints on them and then while they can put them in the vehicle. So a police officer never should have had his knee on a person's neck for 10 minutes. Let's be clear about that. That was an overstep of authority. Now, I have some conspiratorial types of beliefs about that, but that's neither here nor there, right? I like to look deeper into things. But those are the facts. That's what we're dealing with right now. And was that situation wrong? Yes, 100%. Should people be angry about that? Absolutely. Where did it go wrong, however, though? White cop, black man. White cop, black man. White cop, black man. This is where all this stuff's going on. Sure, where it went wrong, I mean, let's be honest, the guy died, right? That was also terrible. But where the direction of this narrative had gone wrong is it got misconstrued and muddled into the political correctness, social justice warrior type of cannon fodder, so to speak, where it now became a powder keg for racism again. And that's bullshit. That's bullshit. Now, people out there are going to be like, oh, you're white. You don't know anything about any of this stuff, blah, blah, blah. Police are more brutal towards black men and all this other stuff in the black community. Yeah, that's true. That's true. But we also have to look at the other side of the coin. Black men are more likely to resist arrest and be more violent in general. These are statistics that are shown from the FBI. Now, am I pointing any fingers? No, I'm not. I'm just relaying the information of what's going on right now. Are police innocent on any of this stuff? Absolutely not. And this is something that I'm going to get into here because there are a lot of issues with the police force in today's society. And we're starting to see this. We saw it during the coronavirus pandemic bullshit, where police officers are overstepping their bounds and they're overusing force on a society that doesn't need to have that level of force applied to it. Just because someone doesn't comply with your unlawful arrest and detainment doesn't give you the right to subject them to any type of harm, violence, or even detainment. So this is actually one of the biggest issues that we need to talk about today, right? Let's talk about this. Where the riots, right? So at first, it was a protest. At first, it was a protest when this whole thing happened. And I believe the community, now, this isn't the black community. I believe the community at that point in time had every right and every justification, to march on that police station and to take it into their hands. Why? Well, what we see going on in today's world, and this was, like I said, this was a powder keg that occurred because we had been on lockdown for 3 months as well. Nationally, we had been seeing a whole bunch of stuff going on with police officers overstepping their bounds on the public, enforcing unjust laws. As a matter of fact, they weren't even laws. They were dictates by mayors and governors, right? This was, some people say, executive orders, which is another unconstitutional type of form or another unconstitutional type of rule that gives these people authority and to create laws and rules that are unjust. We have we have 3 branches of our government for a reason. It's so that there can't be a dictatorial individual that sits there and creates laws just out of thin air to, essentially create tyranny, right? So these aren't laws that these governors are putting into place. They're putting into place kind of instruction, so to speak, right? It should be guidance, guidelines. The crazy part here too is this: even the law today, the rule of law that everyone keeps trying to use and say, laws are, at the end of the day, just guidelines, because there is nothing black or white about reality, about human connection, about the way that we operate, right? Even the 10 Commandments, thou shalt not kill, right? Well, that's not true. That's not true, right? If someone's coming and they're raiding my house and trying to steal all my supplies, my livelihood, I have every right and justification to kill that person. I don't know what they're going to do to me, right? It's the same thing with the law. The law says you cannot murder, right? In that case, that was self-defense. So there's a difference between self-defense, killing, right, and murder. Anyway, long story on that one. The people at that point in time, because we've had this powder keg brewing of stuff going on with police officers, and this is why, again, going back to Michigan, the people that marched on the governor's office with guns, that was 100% justified. Read the Constitution. This is 100% justified. These people are civil servants. They serve us, the people. We voted them into power. They serve us. They're not really in charge of us. They're representatives of the people. And if the people decide that that person, that group of people are not uh, abiding by the social contract between the two parties, they have every right to revolt. Every right. So when this protest first started off and this community, right, marched on the police station and destroyed the police station, I would say justified. Where it started to go wrong, though, was after that, after they made their stand and they pushed back against that social contract, right, that went wrong, then this is when it became a riot. When you start looting people's personal property, their businesses, right? Now you've broken the social contract amongst other individuals, amongst society. When you decide to go and steal other people's property just for your gain, now you yourself have become a tyrant. Right? And this is also where you lose the faith and the trust among other people in your community. And when people lose faith and trust among people in their community, guess what we're going to do? This is just natural. We consider them enemies, and we look for like characteristics, which then leads to people stereotyping. Because there's so much information coming into this brain of ours that we have to lump it into a category that determines whether or not something is safe or something is a threat. That's the way people work. So let's get into this, because I have to be honest with you. Black people, you have a lot of work to do. And I know that sounds fucked up to say, because guess what? And this is the biggest fucking issue that's been going on in the world today, is we have been pandering to the Black community for far too long. We as a society have been propping you up and painting you as a victim for far too long. And what has it done? It's removed your sovereignty. It's removed your self-actualization. It's removed your ability to be self-regulated and self-developed. Through this pandering, and this is another finger that I'm going to point. This is mainly due to white women. White women are the biggest threat to a democracy, honestly, because they have and know no bounds when it comes to their virtue signaling. Because white women, believe it or not, are the top of they're the top of the totem pole when it comes to, I don't want to say the word power, but when it comes to social authority. And they've taken on this pet project of propping up Black people as the highest form of victim, and then them being the ones that are like, hey, look, I'm the one fighting for injustice. And what that's ended up doing is it's ended up becoming too much of a nanny state. They've been nannied for far too long, to the point that our government, the structures that we have, the way that we've gone through our school systems and so forth, has turned the Black community into a bunch of victims. And they're now at the point where everything that they see is a form of racism or prejudice or injustice. And furthermore, it's a means for them to take and take and take from a system that, quote unquote, has oppressed them for too long. This is the psychology that we need to understand with all this. And what it's done is it's created a different culture. Now, of course, and here's what I want to get toward. And, of course, there's going to be lobs of this is racism, this is racism, this is racism. No, it's gross generalities. It is. It's gross generalities, 100%. Of course. Is every single black person like this? No, it's not. But what I'm talking about is, and this is a phrase that's used by the black community. We have a black community, right? BET, all this other stuff. We have black culture. That's the term usually used for this. And what I would say is this, and obviously there's Hispanic people that fall into this. There's Asian people that fall into this mindset. There's white people for sure. There's tons of trailer park trash and all these other people. The difference is a difference between the victim mindset and what I call the champion mindset. It's a poverty mindset versus I don't want to say rich mindset, but it's a power mindset, right? There's a poverty mindset and a power mindset. The poverty mindset believes that everyone out there is against them. The system is against them. They owe me. They owe me. All my problems are due to that. Take as much as I can and never give out, and rely on a system. Rely on a system. The power mindset comes from a state of understanding that I am the arbiter and orchestrator of everything that happens in my life. My life is a series of choices and consequences. And whatever comes my way is something that I can deal with, I'm going to work with, and I'm going to mold it towards building myself to get better and better and better and better. I'm in control. I'm in charge. I'm a self-owned, self-actualized individual. And believe it or not, that is the onus of the Constitution of the United States of America. That mindset right there is the American way. That's what America is. It's a free individual. It's a free individual. So what it comes down to with this is what we're also dealing with is we are dealing with a form of multiculturalism. We're dealing with two distinct types of cultures. One that buys into the victim mindset, the poverty mindset. This is where the SJWs all fall into, where the fascists fall into, where the socialists fall into. Everyone that's kind of teetering on the edge of far left wing today. These are all victims. These are all people that are looking for a form of oppression every single day. They want to play the oppression Olympics. They want to build a hierarchy off of this intersectional feminism type of thing. And they always want to point the finger at the man. And then they have their hand out, right? One hand's pointing and the other hand is out. You're bad, you're bad, you're bad. Guilt, shame, guilt, shame, guilt, shame, guilt, shame. Give me this, give me this, give me this, give me this, give me this to make up for it. And the worst part about that is their shame, their guilt, and their need for more is endless. There's no filling the belly of that beast. And there's no limitation to the growth of government. There's no limitation to their tyrannical ways. That is essentially tyranny. It's the opposite of sovereignty. Everyone is a slave to that system. And it's an awful way to live, honestly. So what does it come down to when it comes to this whole Black Lives Matter type of thing? Well, first and foremost, get the fuck over that. Get over it. Stop identifying as a black person. Stop identifying. I mean, what I'm trying to say in that sense is, yeah, fuck it. Stop identifying as a black person. Stop using your race as your identity. If your name's Marvin, be Marvin. If your name's Jan, be Jan, right? Stop walking around and identifying yourself, number one, as this person, or as this race rather. And living through the lens of believing that's how you're seen in this world today. Because like I said, and sure, absolutely. Is there such thing as white privilege? Sure, absolutely. Is there such thing as black privilege? Absolutely. Every race, every single person in this country, right, that belongs to a certain demographic or whatever, they all have their pros and cons. They do, right? It's like black people, black dudes are more likely to become fucking famous rappers and sports stars and so forth, and get millions of dollars of contracts for their athleticism, right? For their talents when it comes to music. I mean, it's even happening more and more in the film industry, right? It's crazy. That's amazing, right? It's amazing that you could go from being that poor, right? If that's your background, being that poor, to now having multi-million-dollar contracts and selling albums and influencing people that way. It's amazing. You're not seeing that happen in the white community that much. You're not seeing a whole lot of people being signed for NFL contracts or going in the NBA, right? Look at the NBA now, right? And the reason why I bring this up is you got to start taking into consideration some of the things that are beautiful about this country, about how you do have positives of being this way, right? Sitting here and focusing on the negatives, like, this is what's gone on. Like I said, we live in a country right now that panders to you guys, to the Black community, and everyone is supposed to feel bad for you at every fucking second of the day. And I got to be honest with you, I'm frankly tired of it. I'm sick and tired of scrolling through right now and seeing fucking pictures on Instagram or on Twitter of these corporations that are telling people that Black Lives Matter and everything's about race and we got to stop racism. That shit's been done and over with for some time. As a matter of fact, and I hate to sit here and point the finger, but there's other forms of racism that are going on today. And honestly, who fucking cares? Who cares? I don't. Right? Like, I do and I don't. I'm like not really attached to it. I don't fucking care. I don't care that much. Why? Because I'm not, like I said, I'm just not attached to it. I'm not attached to it. I'm not attached to the outcomes of these things, because I've been through so much shit in my life and I've rebuilt my life over and over and over that I know that I'm going to thrive. I'm going to keep fucking going. That's all that matters. It's about me. It's about how it's about the impact that I have on the world. And if there's any one message that I could deliver to help out in this situation for how the Black community needs to move forward, is exactly that. Stop identifying with stupid shit like this. Stop buying into the race baiting. Stop buying into the victimhood status. I saw amazing videos. I saw this one video of this one dude. So 3 Black men. One dude was 45, one dude was 35, and the other kid was 16. So we're talking 3 different generations, so to speak, at this point in time, right? And they all had different perspectives. And the 35-year-old dude was like, hey, if you continue to live this way of what this dude's telling you, and if you continue to get involved with this bullshit, at 45 years old, you're going to have the same exact worldview as this guy who's been living in that fucking victim mindset, which is just super low vibrational energy. Honestly, it's just destructive to your soul. It's destructive to your ability to fucking impact the world. If you go out there every single day looking for ways that you're oppressed, looking for ways to justify why you can't get ahead in life, it's going to destroy you. And that's what he had to say. That's what he had to say to this kid. I don't know how to fix this, but you need to figure out how. And it's not by picking up a brick and throwing it through that fucking store. It's not by getting on the front lines of this riot and fucking getting beat up by cops and doing all this other shit, right? Be smarter about it. Figure out a way for us to move forward. And I believe the solution is honestly this. It's kind of strange. And I remember this growing up, going through school. First and foremost, there's a lot of white guilt. There's a lot of white guilt that's put in these school systems. And then not just that, it's also the same thing that's done if Black people are in the classroom. I can honestly tell you at least 5 years, but I would even hedge the bets of saying 8 years in my school. Definitely 5 years, though. We focused on the Civil War and racism. I know for a fact that we watched Roots twice. I think it was like once in fucking 8th or 9th grade. Yeah, once in 8th grade and then once later on or something like that. Or once in 5th grade or something. And then later on in 8th grade. And of course, a lot of the teachers are very liberal. I grew up in Connecticut. And that's all the message was. White men are bad. All of our presidents owned slaves early on, all this other stuff. It's like that was such a fucking small blip, honestly. And I hate to sit here and fucking say that, but it was such a small blip in our history. And we spent 5 to 8 years doing that. And what was it for? It was to send a message. It was in order for us to divide ourselves, right? It was implementing this social justice, intersectional feminism hierarchy into the brains of these kids. So there's no wonder why we're seeing these ideologues, these 18 to 22-year-old kids, and then also my millennial generation of people out on the front lines throwing fucking bricks and Molotov cocktails and standing behind this stuff and causing all this type of shit. Because believe it or not, now, and this is what's going on with white women and their virtue signaling and all this other shit, right? That was the beast to quell. That was the beast to beat up in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, right? And it's still deeply ingrained into them. So now they're on high alert when it comes to racism. They're trying to prove themselves that they're not racist, right? It's like, this isn't really that big of a deal. Racism really isn't that big of a deal in the United States of America today. And what was removed from the school systems was what's known as civics at that point in time. I remember going through about a year or two of it, and I was just completely fascinated by it. And what were we learning in civics? Well, we learned about the founding principles of America. Now, was it perfect when we first started this country? Absolutely not. Is the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence, which is declaring our independence from whatever, and the Constitution, is it perfect? Is it perfect? No, but it's definitely the best goddamn thing we got. And I would challenge anyone out there right now, especially during this time, to go back and start reading these documents. Now, if you don't want to go and read the old English version of it to try to figure out what it is, there's a lot of different resources on there. There's a book that I'm reading currently, right? I own it and I just peruse through it every once in a while. It's called How to Read the Constitution. And it breaks it all down, Barney style, very easy. Because essentially, what does that document outline? It outlines the entire premise of what America is. And it's the only true document in today's world that promotes unalienable rights of an individual. Self-ownership. That's like the main principle of that whole thing. Self-ownership. The lowest level of governance possible. What's the lowest level of governance possible? It's me governing my own life. It's me governing my family. It's me governing my own small community by policing behavior on its own, by having our own type of moral virtue in that own environment, right? We don't need big government telling us what to do and trickling it down. We need everyone to take self-ownership, understand their own rights, understand that freedom is something that needs to be preserved, right? And understanding that my freedom only goes so far as until it affects the freedom of another individual. It's like what I just said earlier today. You had every right in the world to go and storm that police station. Why? Because those guys are civil servants and they broke the social bond. Where it went wrong was when you started to go and steal other people's property and destroy their livelihoods. So you were protecting someone's freedom at first by opposing a tyrannical force that was state run as civil servants and paid for by the tax dollars of the people. And then you decided to trample on somebody else's individual freedoms by taking their stuff. It's like you can't do that. You can't be both the victim and the oppressor, right? That sends a mixed message. So moving forward, that's what needs to happen, believe it or not. As much as you may sit here and say, oh, I hate America, what you're really saying is you hate how tyrannical the state has become. America in principle is the most beautiful thing on the planet. That's the reason why so many people have immigrated to this country. Well, prior to our whole welfare state, which is another thing that we need to get into. But America, the principle, right? The idea is the most beautiful thing out there. And that document, the Constitution of the United States, is what highlights exactly how our country should be run. But nobody takes the time to read this document to understand how it should be working properly. And if they did, I think people would really start to, once people understood their rights, once people understood the roles and regulations of their government, I think things would become better. The biggest issue that's gone on between, like I said, the victim mindset, the victim community, the victim culture, and the power culture, right? And like I said, this has a lot to do with the Black community, is that we've lost the trust. We've become different cultures. We can't live amongst one another if you aren't going to be willing to protect my freedom. If you want to create systems that end up stealing more tax dollars from people that are becoming more successful in order for it to clean up your messes, right? It's a huge thing. It's a huge thing that's gone on in the Black community, Black culture. Single motherhood, welfare, Section 8 housing, right? WIC, all these other things, right? That just take and take and take and take and take from taxpayers. And then there's more violence. And then whenever this violence is dealt with by police officers, now it's racism. It's like you can't continue to keep pointing the finger and take and take and take. It's not fair, right? It's not fair. So what's the answer? What's the solution? Well, read the Constitution. And I know I'm not a statist by any means, but I think this is the solution for right now. I don't believe in the state. And that's why I like the Constitution. It should be about creating systems from the local community level, from the individual up to the community, rather than relying on a centralized government. The Constitution even states that that's not supposed to be the way things are run. We're not supposed to have a big federal government. We're not supposed to have one isolated center, right? I mean, we are. The federal government's supposed to exist for the national military and so forth, and different aspects when it comes to like the judiciary and so forth, of being able to, like the Supreme Court and so forth. But as far as the amount of power that it has now, it's not supposed to happen. And this is also supposed to happen when it comes to your counties and when it comes to your state. There's too much isolated, centralized power that needs to be removed. Now, there's another thing that I want to talk about here, because this is really what it comes down to, is the biggest issue that's going on in the air today is the people versus the state. That's really what the fight is. That's really what's going on today, where people are angry because there's just way too much tyranny that's going on. Now, we can also get into this when it comes to corporations mixed with our federal government, right? Their backdoor dealing kind of stuff. The crony capitalism does exist at this point in time. Corporations are getting away with fucking practically murder. They're practically writing fucking legislation, and our politicians who are being bought off are pushing this legislation through, and it's enslaving us more and more. So it's really hard for small time people to make money because these corporations have literally usurped the Constitution, usurped our politicians in Washington, D.C. And now what they've done is they've built up our military and they've built up our police forces into militarized units. So now there's actually really no means for us as a people to stand up. because all of these state-sponsored, I don't want to call them terrorists, but all these state-sponsored hitmen, essentially is what they are outgunning us like crazy. So what's the direction moving forward? Because police in this situation are actually they're the ones with the target on their back, and rightfully so at this point in time. Like, let's be real. Police officers have overstepped their bounds as far as their job is concerned. They have also fostered an us versus them type of mentality. And why is that? Well, police forces are, number one, over militarized. I'm seeing police officers now wearing like green jumpsuits. They're looking like they are in the military. They're wearing all sorts of gear that have them in a militarized type of mindset. They have fucking MRAPs, for God's sakes. MRAP is a militarized vehicle, right? It is an up-armored vehicle that can take RPG fire. So these guys roll in with guns ablazing pretty much on these things, and they're like, yeah, you can't fuck with us. Get on the ground, do what we tell you. We're going to arrest you for exercising your rights. It's like, well, you can't do it. Get in the truck. Right? You can't do that. So what's the answer for them as well? Well, number one, this is what police officers need to do. And this is what we need to do as far as a public is concerned, is we need to put forward reform. We need to put forward reform that demilitarizes our police officers, our police stations, right? Police officers are servants of the community. They have hands-on. They should be participating with their community, understanding the community, understanding the temperature of the room, so to speak, understanding how things are going on. We can't have them operating as though it's an us versus them type of thing. Now, of course, at the same token, right, the community also has to kind of abide by that as well, right? One of the biggest issues that's also harming our relationship with police officers is this. There's just frankly too many laws. There are too many fucking laws out there. So what we need to do is we need to simplify law. If it's a nonviolent crime, if it hasn't caused any bodily harm or injury or caused any damage to any person's property, is there really a means for a police officer to be called? No, because what are police officers essentially doing when they show up? And this is the biggest problem. This is the biggest problem with our police force today. They are meant to instigate an altercation. I know that sounds crazy, but that's essentially what they do. They show up, they have a gun, they have authority, and most of the time they're fucking assholes. Like, let's be honest. I get it. You can sit here and blame, oh shit, I got all this stuff to do. I just came off a fucking bad call or whatever, all this other stuff. At the same time, like, that's not really an excuse. Because most of the time, these people are being called to situations where there's a conflict. And really what it comes down to with conflict, kind of like what I'm doing right now, is this. I have to sit there as a higher level being, so to speak, and I have to, number one, de-escalate the situation. I have to hear both sides, right? And I have to make a rational decision. And the problem with instigating is it comes from a place of fear and a mixture of power, right? It's a situation where if my authority isn't shown, then I will look weak, right? That's a place of fear. I'm less than. But the reality of the situation is most of the time, authority is not necessary. And there also, a majority of the time, there doesn't need to be a solution, if that makes any sense, right? Like, I'm all about removing ticketing. Remove ticketing. Why is that? Well, if someone's doing something irresponsible and they commit a violent crime, so to speak, right? Then that's the crime. You can't stop a crime before someone commits a crime. It's silly. That's the silliest notion out there. And a lot of the time what's going on, and with that said, when people do that, that's denying someone the freedom to make the choices in their own lives. So now you're going to fine me $1,000 for something that I didn't even really do. I didn't do anything wrong. And that's what starts to spark this kind of fire. Now, the next thing is this too, right? There's a lot of poor decisions that are made when it comes to policing today. And what we need to do, like I said, we need to make more clear-cut rules, simplify this stuff down that the people agree to live by and police officers agree to enforce. And as a matter of fact, what I would much rather see, to be honest with you, is communities come together and start policing behavior more so. And this is where I actually do like BLM. Because when it first started, that's essentially what they were doing, is they were policing their own communities. Said, hey, we got it. Hands off. Get the fuck out of here, cops. Let's rock and roll. Let's take care of our own communities. Let's police behavior here and so forth. Very, very respectable. 100% agree with that. I think that's a beautiful thing. If the community agrees that that's who's going to be the authority, so to speak, and that we're going to do this as a community is concerned, and everyone is going to have a say in this kind of deal, awesome. That's the future of policing right there. It should be the community level. It should be people within the community where there's skin in the game, where people understand their community, understand their people, understand what's going on, where people every day get on one another in a way, right? To do the right thing. Right? You see someone throw they get some ice cream, right? A little fucking ice cream cone, and they take the wrapper and they throw it on the fucking ground. Hey, pick that up. Take pride in your community. That's all that needs to be done. You don't need Karens calling the fucking cops saying someone littered. Come over here with your guns and your badge and authority and fucking find them or put them in a car, because that's what's going to happen. If we do have a police force, though, they need to be trained in de-escalation. They need to be demilitarized, and they need to be trained in de-escalation. How can I go to this situation, learn how to de-escalate the emotions and the feelings, and help resolve the situation without oppressing someone's rights? Which brings me to my last point. Police officers today have very, very little understanding of the Constitution, which they've sworn an oath to protect. The Constitution is the ruling body of the United States of America. If a governor, a mayor, anyone gives you an order that violates the Constitution, you do not follow it. I don't care if the fucking mayor or the governor pays you. It is your duty, having that level of authority, to say no. Greg Anderson, police officer, just recently did this. He got fucking fired. Well, I think he got put on leave or some shit like that. And then he just pretty much quit. But that's essentially what they were doing, is they were bureaucratically fucking him over, right? Because what do they want? What do these mayors and governors want? Well, these are also people that really have no skill or talent in leadership. They don't understand any of this stuff, and they're really just there to be fucking tyrants. They're there for the political appeal, right? They're there for their own power. They're there to feed their own ego. They're not really there to actually benefit the people. They're there because something inside them wanted to have that level of authority over people, to make them feel something. This is sad. A lot of police officers do this too. But in the model that I'm trying to show you right now, things will be a lot better. So police officers need to be demilitarized. We need to really greatly reduce the amount of laws on the records right now. They need to learn how to de-escalate situations. We need to turn over policing more to the communities as well. So in the future, essentially, I would like to see just police officers be detectives. That's the only level of policing that really should happen. If we have communities actually doing the day-to-day policing, like, this is another thing, is most people lost the identity and don't understand what the word policing means, right? It's just keeping an eye on everybody and making sure everybody follows kind of along the lines of the social fucking ruling, right? The way things are supposed to operate. Police one another. You don't have to be a dick about it, right? We don't like being fucking dicks to one another. Don't be a dick about it. Just, there's boundaries. These are the rules. Live by them. Cool. Awesome. Right? So yeah, demilitarize the police, reduce the amount of laws on the books, teach them de-escalation, and then there needs to be higher levels of training for police officers before they become an officer of understanding the Constitution of the United States. And they need to be put through some type of ethical training. Ethics. Put them through the fucking gambit, right? Test them in different types of, what's it called? If they receive a fucking unjust order, give them unjust orders and see if they follow. Cut them out if they fucking do it, right? I had to do this when I became a counterintelligence, human intelligence specialist. I had to go through this insane boarding process because there's a high level of ethics that are involved in being an interrogator and running sources and source operations. Crazy, wild questioning that you would never expect to be asked. But they needed to find out what you had inside of you, how you're going to operate under pressure, what type of moral compass you have. That's what we need to do. We have to have mature individuals with experience too, by the way. It's another big thing. Can't be having fucking Brock fucking whoever fresh off a fucking JV fucking football team coming over and becoming a cop just to get a fucking steady paycheck and some benefits. It's like, no, we need mature men. That's another thing I'll get into. It needs to be men. Mature men who have some experience in life that can go through this testing, this moral compass testing. Anyway, I think I hit all the main points that I want to talk about when it comes to this stuff. Wrapping it up all in a nice little bow. This has nothing to do with racism. If you're on the race train, get off of it. If you're on the victim train, get off of that. If you're in any form of identity politics, get off of it. It's not the way forward. It's not the trajectory that we need to go for this country to get better. You need to get on board with the identity of what an American is. You need to identify and be on Team America. I hate to say it like that, right? Now, again, going back to this, supporting the idea and the understanding of what America is not supporting the federal government or the state government. That's our next target. Honestly, our government's too big. Our government fucked up hardcore during this COVID-19 shit, unlocking us all down and destroying our economy. Our government fucked up by printing trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars and bailing out their corporate fucking buddies and not helping the American people. And now, whether or not you believe this is a false flag event that's going on with all this riot and all this other bullshit, now we're getting the fucking National Guard being called in. And this is martial law. This is martial law, people. We got to get over using these euphemisms, right? But you got to read the Constitution of the United States. You got to get on Team America. You got to realize that we as people need to break down the system. We need to decentralize it. We need to empower people. And I hate that term. I really do. It's too fucking charged. But we need to teach people that they are sovereign individuals and they are responsible for the outcomes of their own life and how they view the world. We need to break down into communities again. We need our communities and our families to be the structure by which this is built. We need to remove state power. We need to decentralize nearly everything when it comes to medicine, when it comes to school systems, when it comes to, I'd even say, religion, when it comes to the supply lines, right? We're approaching a time frame right now where food supply lines are going to be fucked. Shit's going to get really hard. We need to figure out how to break everything down to the community level and shrink our governments down, shrink our government authority down, and give the power back over to the people. Because that's really what we crave. That's what all of this is about. We all want our freedom back. We want the freedom to choose. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed. Seriously, if you guys have any questions, please do post in the comments below. My name's Corey Capella. For those of you guys out there that don't know who I am, you can feel free to add me on Instagram at Corey Capella. You can go to my website, www.coreycapella.com. Feel free to send me an email at agodofmen@gmail.com if you have any questions. And like I said, let's try to keep the racist rhetoric down. If you really soul search as to what I'm saying, you'll understand that I'm right. And really what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to help people free themselves from the shackles of this mental slavery known as victimhood and empower themselves to be self-actualized, self-governed, free individuals living amongst one another in a balanced society. Anyway, that's all I got. Thank you.